From WCIA 3 Plus with your hosts Glenn Kinley, Courtney Lane Brewer, and Tristan Thomas. This is the SEFCU Your Illini Nation WCIA 3 in 1 podcast.
All right, welcome in. This is the Your Illini Nation WCIA 3 in 1 podcast. We actually have all three today. We got the whole squad today.
I don't think we've done this since the first one.
It's been a while. It's been a minute. We had a couple times, I think, where it was just Courtney and I, then it was just Tristan and I, then Courtney, you were solo last week, I was solo the week before. If you can't tell, it's not that we're just too lazy to get up here and record a podcast. We're typically running around quite a bit and gathering lots of content and turning all sorts of different stories, whether that's interviews and putting stuff together. So
if we're all three in this building on the same day, it's because we have things to do.
Yes.
It's because we're not in this building.
And
we're
when all
timing
three
this
of
one
us,
up nicely, yes.
when all three of us are here, other people we work with are like, "Whoa, the
Well,
whole
yeah,
sports
What's
team
going on?
is here.
Yeah,
What's going
why are you
on?"
guys all
Yeah.
here? So we're not all three here. There's multiple days we all three work, but we're not all three at the building because we're going out and turning different stories and stuff. So coverage on the way of a number of different things. We're always previewing the Illini football, the upcoming game, and recapping the previous game. We'll do that a little bit on here. We're also covering high school football quite a bit. When we get done recording this, Tristan and Courtney are both going out and previewing our spotlight game of the week, which is SJO versus Unity. We'll talk more about that later. Of course, we're covering Illini volleyball, Illini soccer. There's a lot going on. Illini golf is in action this week, I believe. So, but let's start with Illinois football. Can't complain. 3-0 start. Slow first half against Western Michigan. I think Brett Bielema had a lot to say at halftime, and apparently the guys got the message because they looked significantly is probably an understatement, that the second half looked like a different team, specifically on offense.
He did say yesterday his hand was still a little numb. If you watched Brett Bielema's post-game press conference on our site or anywhere else, he gave a pretty fiery halftime speech that ended in, I guess, like a whoosh, and came to
What was the sound effect again?
came to the podium after the game saying that his hand was swollen, and yesterday he said it was numb. But it worked when you see the difference in the first half versus Western Michigan versus the second half.
Tristan, what did you think the biggest difference was in that? I think it's important to point out the defense was pretty good the whole way. I think even the defense was better in the second half, but the defense in the first half had a missed field goal and they had the goal line stand. So Western Michigan was close to scoring a couple times in the first half. In the second half, they really never really threatened.
And I think missed a field goal that was makeable as well. So even though you see the shutout, you go a couple plays away maybe from being a tie game.
A tie game at halftime.
And all of a sudden, the college football world's talking, "Whoa, Illinois and Western Michigan tied at the half." But I mean, the biggest thing I think we saw the run game get going, saw the offensive line really start to get downhill, and talked to them today, Josh Geske and offensive line coach Bart Miller, and they talked about, hey, they know they got to start faster. They've got to hold each other accountable, and something they can do as an experienced group that's played with each other now for plenty of games now. So the biggest thing was the run game getting going. Saw Khalil Valentine make some plays. Saw Caden Fagan get in the end zone and continue to reestablish himself after that injury last year. So it's the run setting up the pass, which is big. And then, of course, some pass catchers stepping up as well. Ashton Hollins coming in, back-to-back catches, 41 yards, and his first touchdown with the Illini. I got to chat with him today about that as well. And a cool story for him because he had surgery on both of his shoulders, an ACL injury as a freshman. So, he's had a lot to overcome, a lot to work through, and it was cool to see him talk about that. Said his family's been big in keeping him, kind of locked in there. His faith is a big part of just, being able to roll with the punches and being ready for his opportunity, and he was there as well.
Well, and Aaron Henry, defensive coordinator Aaron Henry, when he took the podium yesterday, before he even took questions, he goes, "Before I start," and last week he hit us with a "before I start," and it was thank you to the fans.
Okay.
This week, his "before I start" was Ashton Hollins. The defensive coordinator talking about this kid said last week on Tuesday, he was on look team. And here he goes on Saturday getting his first touchdown. So just really neat, and seems like everyone in the building has been impacted and everyone is celebrating that for him.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Ashton Hollins was a guy throughout fall camp. We were talking so much about the wide receivers, and then I think there was a point where I looked at both you guys and I was like, what about Ashton Hollins? We haven't really talked about him much, and now we are talking about him because He made a couple great plays. He had a big catch to get him in the red zone, and he had the touchdown catch. Hank Beatty continues to be really good, stating the obvious on that front. But let's go back to the run game you were talking about, Tristan, because I think that was just huge for Illinois. It sounds like I'm oversimplifying it, but maybe it is that simple. Everything goes better for Illinois when the run game gets going. You're not in obvious passing downs, and you don't feel like you have to throw the ball as often. And when you do, the defense can't completely back off and go pass coverage only. Without Aiden Lawfrey, it was a slow start, but the second half, for the second straight week, the second half, that run game looked really good. Khalil Valentine is a different football player than he was a year ago. There was a while where he was the juke package guy. He could break your ankles. He was shifty. And then Caden was the big guy running downhill, run you over, drag you for 5 yards. And Khalil seems to be showing a little bit of both of those things now. He's bigger and he's stronger and he eats contact now. And even just a running back falling forward. You're talking about that extra yard of when they get tackled, are they falling forward or backwards? That's a yard or two difference. He's falling forward now. And Caden had a really good day, a 100-yard rushing day that I thought was, I don't want to say needed, but like a good boost for him from a confidence perspective. And I think Bielema alluded to this talking about the Duke game, but I think it was still true against Western Michigan, even though he had 100 yards. I think you could watch back Caden's film and pick out 4 or 5 carries that could have been more. Had he gotten his leg through, they just barely clipped him and he might tumble over, but that were close. I'm not saying they were bad runs, but they were 6-yard gains that could have been 16 if he beat one more guy. I think he's on the cusp of doing something special. I think there's a number of guys on this offense that were kind of like, all right, we're seeing glimpses of it. Mm-hmm. Colin Dixon's one of them. Like Luke targets Colin a lot. And they just missed on a deep ball. Colin, it hit both of his hands, and Luke probably would have told you he had just a touch too much air under it, but it would have been a 34-yard deep ball. And I think that if those two really dial up their connection, Colin, I said it on our pregame show last week, Courtney, Colin Dixon's going to have a 100-yard receiving game, maybe a couple of them this year. That's just a matter of time. But when you have Khalil doing what he does and Hank doing what he does and Caden doing what he does, then those other guys, it opens doors for those guys because – the running back spot specifically, that's got to be challenging. The defense goes, all right, thank goodness. Caden Fagan just ran us over 3 times. Yeah. He's on the bench now. And then Khalil Valentine comes in and he runs you over for a touchdown. And you're like, he wasn't supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem fair.
Another guy I'm really enjoying seeing flashes of, very remnant of Khalil last year, Hudson Clement had a great catch at Duke. And I think it's really setting him up to build a foundation. Whether we see a ton of him this season or not, does he have another year of eligibility?
I think so.
Whether it's not till next season, I think he's setting that foundation in a really good way.
Yeah, we're thinking way too far ahead now, but he could be Hank Beatty, Pat Bryant type of guy in his last year, right? In that he doesn't do it all right away, and if he's patient, he gets that bigger role next year, and he grows a lot this year. He had a really nice one-handed catch against Western Michigan. It was like what was it, Tristan, a 9-yard gain?
I call it like the sickest 9-yard gain you'd ever see.
Oh,
yeah, it was not the most eventful play in the game, but if you were watching closely or recording the game like we were, you were like, that was a crazy catch.
Yeah.
Switching gears here a little bit, let's talk defense a little bit, and then we'll dig into Indiana specifically. The defense, you put a 0 on the board. You feel pretty good about that. But you also did it without Dylan Rosiak, who is a team captain, is kind of one of your, not the only one, but one of your quarterbacks on the defense, if you want to call it that. And a lot of guys stepped up. I thought Alec Bryant had a really good game. Kaneno Deluga obviously had a really good game. Gabe is Gabe. That looked good. But we're seeing some guys step up on this defense. Obviously, goes without saying, this defense is going to get tested this weekend against Indiana.
Yeah, very high praise for Alec Bryant yesterday, both from Brett Bielema and Aaron Henry, on just the way he leads as well as what he does on the field. So I think when you add that to getting Dylan Rosiak back next week, and knock on wood for the rest of the season, defense is in a good spot.
When playing without Dylan Rosiak is something this defense got used to last year. Of course, he went down in the Minnesota game for the year with that ankle injury, I believe. But having him back is huge, but it's also not uncharted territory when he's out. Something that I thought was cool was chatting with Matt Bailey after the game, and he was talking about how the communication of this group and how there's so many inside linebackers who can be in and out.
Yeah.
And they enjoyed the challenge of kind of like developing that relationship and that chemistry and something that, obviously is a big part of defense at any level, but especially at this level of knowing what, everyone being in sync and knowing, the guy next to you, the guy on the other side of the field is going to do their job. And I think that is pretty strong with this group. And we saw it on that goal line stand, right? And Kenenna Odeluga making that tackle. And Luke talked about how that really was part of turning the momentum from that slow first half and really coming out fast was that little jolt of energy. And I'm sure that could carry over into the locker room speech at halftime. But yeah, this defense, they fly around, making more tackles, not missing tackles, obviously a big thing, but a focus for this group at Indiana in a big time environment. And, you can't have a 5-yard gain turn into a 25-yard gain.
Yeah.
You get those one-on-one tackles in space. You got to be able to wrap up and have everyone swarming to the ball.
I would be very interested for a number of reasons, but that halftime of Western Michigan when Bielema said he was as spirited as he's ever been at Illinois, when they were running off the field, the vibes were actually pretty high because they got the goal line stop.
Yeah.
So they're celebrating, they're happy, big stop, let's go, all right, yeah, we're feeling good. And then they just get in the locker room and just
Hey,
That was horrible.
Yeah. So that had to have been interesting. And maybe, I don't want to make assumptions on B's speech. Maybe that was part of it is, you guys think everything's sunshine and rainbows because you got a 1-yard stop against Western Michigan and we can't score more than once in the half. So maybe that was part of it, was that B didn't like that they were actually pretty happy going to the locker room. I don't know. He didn't say that. But let's talk about the Hoosiers a little bit. And we have a Brett Bielema soundbite that we'll get to shortly. But I think it's pretty safe to say this will be the toughest test Illinois has had yet. Duke was a good team, but I will say I think Duke's quarterback is really good, and that had to prepare Illinois, although Illinois didn't make him look very good in the second half. But that's a highly touted quarterback, and so you're going against a quarterback for a second time, a quarterback that is pretty highly respected, that a lot of people think is a really good football player for good reason. And it's an interesting dynamic because this will be Illinois' toughest test yet. This will be Indiana's toughest test yet by a much more significant margin. Think if Illinois didn't play Duke, that's about what Indiana's schedule has been.
Well, let's just say it. We were talking about it before we hopped on the mic. They opened up the season against Old Dominion. That was a shutout, maybe?
I don't think they shut them out, but I think it was a
Indiana
two-touchdown
State
win.
was 73.
Indiana, yes. So they opened up against Old Dominion. Then you play Kennesaw State. Then you play Indiana State. I mean, let's get real.
They haven't played, a Power 5 team yet, and Illinois has only played one, but that was a Duke team that was receiving votes in the AP poll at the time, and we'll see where Duke goes from here. But that will be difficult. It is in Bloomington. The Hoosiers are favored in this one, and I always think the where the game is being played moves it 3 or 4 points. So you could probably figure if this game was in Champaign, you might be looking at a pick'em. Or maybe even Illinois -1 or whatever it is. So I think what you're looking at, what Vegas thinks are two evenly matched teams. I think if we're being honest, we just don't know yet about Indiana. Yeah. And that I'm not. People are going to take that and say that I'm saying we don't know if Indiana's any good. I'm not saying they might be an 11-win team. I'm not saying they're not, and they might be a 6-win team. We just don't know yet because of who they played. Illinois obviously has seen the team has seen a lot more tape on them than what we have watched, the three of us, but. I think it'll be a good atmosphere probably. Kind of bummed game day. Opted for the 1-2, 1-3 Florida Gators instead. But
all I'm going to say is I am not bummed when there is a game
you want 'em here.
down the schedule that could also make sense.
Yeah.
As somebody who's worked college game day and knows about all of the logic that goes into the back, I'm not freaking out.
If Illinois keeps winning... Up until then, obviously some tough games before then, but what do you guys think this week does from I don't know if confidence is the right word, but momentum standpoint, as far as you're feeling good, you're 3-0, but you're talking about a team with playoff hopes that is smart enough to know. I think a lot of people have said, Illinois has got an easy schedule. I think this team's smart enough to know that USC game's not easy. Obviously, Ohio State at Washington is not easy. Rutgers was a close game last year. Starting conference play 1-0, I think, would go a long way. They will tell you it's just another game, and it is. It'll only count for one win or one loss. But I think getting that first one and feeling good and potentially moving up. Although I did look at the 1 through 8 rankings of the teams right ahead of Illinois, and it would take a pretty monumental upset this weekend for Illinois to move up at all. But I think that would go a long way.
You know, Robert Rosenthal and I talked a lot about this week on Sunday No Huddle, and in my opinion, a loss in this game would be more detriment than a win would be helpful. And what I mean by that is if you get a win, people are going to say, well, of course you should have won that game.
Yeah.
You're number 9 Illinois taking on an Indiana team that ain't played nobody. If you lose this game, you're down a loss going into an early kickoff homecoming game. And before, like I said, this really Purdue, but then Ohio State, Washington, these next couple of games. I think a loss could be pretty scary for this team.
Yeah. I trust that Bielema has the locker room in tune enough that it wouldn't go off the rails with a loss, but you're right that if you're 4-0 with a win against an Indiana team that was in the playoff last year, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what he talks about in his thought.
They're in the playoff last year. You're 4-0. You're coming home for homecoming. The energy for that game is going to be ridiculous if you win. And it's already sold out. It's going to be sold out either way, and there's going to be a good crowd there. But if you're 4-0, the energy into that game is going to be really, really high. And at the end of the day, spirits and it's much easier and much, I don't want to say it's fun, but you're talking about, the run game, slow start, or, the tackling, right, Tristan? That stuff is all like okay, and you feel fine talking about it when you still won the football game.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a basketball team that loses and shot, or they win the game, but they shot 6 for 28 from 3-point line, and you can kind of make a joke, man, we couldn't hit a shot today, but you're not laughing about it if you lost.
You
right?
almost like worry that like, did the team really learn from this?
Yeah.
If you don't have a loss to like, well, we really got to learn from this because we actually lost the game, not like, oh, they got away with it type deal.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think for me that like this Indiana game is kind of a crossroads of like expectations. It's like if you win, to me it's like, okay, all aboard the like make the college football playoff train that people are speculating and talking about ahead of this season and right now. But even the Duke game, like that's like before the season, you're looking like that game has lost some of its cachet in terms of what Duke has done.
We compared it to this before. Sorry to cut you off. It's like that Kansas game last year. It was like, what a massive win. Kansas was a 7-8 win team the year before. Like, what a huge win. And then Kansas only won 5 games. And people were like, oh, you only beat Kansas. Right. Yeah. And that's where this game comes in. And this is a more significant one.
If Illinois loses, in my mind, it's kind of like a, hey, can you kind of replicate last year kind of thing? Because that's still a success.
That's a dang good season.
Even if you beat Indiana, that's, in my mind, still a success. So, like, it's a long season. More things can happen. Even if let's say you just lose the Indiana game and the Ohio State game and you win out, okay, then you're back to, like, college football playoff expectations. But like you said, just because Illinois won that game last year, a Purdue, I mean, a Rutgers game, like, those games were really close. Like it's just it's the Big Ten. It's tough. Every week is its own challenge. And it's hard to just mark down everything as a win when you have a loss like that early. And bouncing back from that.
But you're right. It's an interesting matchup. Besides the fact that we or Vegas feels like it's a pretty evenly matched game, or that it could be that, is also a meeting of two programs who maybe historically are not football schools, who both have high expectations, both basketball schools, right? And now we're saying, hold on, we got a football team too. And I think we had joked about this in the off season, or maybe leading up to the season during fall camp, but it's sort of a game of no, your 2024 season was a fluke, no, yours was a fluke. And you got Illinois fans saying, well, Indiana didn't play anyone last year, and it was just year one for Kurt Signetti, and you got Indiana fans saying, well, we were in the playoff. And so it is just interesting, and maybe it's just the people I've seen. I don't claim to scour social media for every Indiana fans post and every Illinois fans post, but it feels like Illinois fans, from what I've seen, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, have kind of been like, all right, hey, this is going to be a great game. Indiana's a good team. We're a good team.
Yeah.
Great college football Saturday. And then Indiana fans have been like, you guys think you can beat us?
You guys are,
You guys are crazy. And it's just interesting. I guess going to the playoff in your first year with a new head coach maybe does that, is that you're like, we're not losing. So Indiana fans seem confident going into this one. I will say this. I don't think, from what I've seen, Indiana coaches or players have disrespected Illinois at all. And so I don't think Bielema is going into it being like, they don't respect us just because some guy on Twitter said that Illinois can't beat them in Bloomington or something.
Well, I mean, you have to go on TV tonight with an Indiana fan, and he was certainly speaking to me yesterday about how he feels about the game.
It's interesting. You're at programs that are in, I would say, somewhat similar spots, but I would say that Indiana maybe wouldn't tell you that they're in similar spots. Maybe Indiana, I'm not saying, again, I'm not speaking on Kurt Signetti or people in the program, but like fan-wise would be like, well, we were in the playoff last year, right? And so I guess we'll see. I mean, again, this Indiana team could be really good, and they might end up being a staple in the college football playoff the next 5 years. Who knows? Or this Indiana team could get exposed this weekend. In a way, we compared this game, we compared the Kansas game to the Duke game. This is also somewhat similar, it feels like, although the programs are much different. I'm not comparing the programs, but just the game to Nebraska last year. Illinois went to Nebraska early in conference play. That was kind of a similar one in that Illinois was like, this is going to be a good game. Nebraska's a good team. And then Nebraska was like, you guys are never beating us. It's our 600th consecutive sellout or 500th or whatever it was. And Illinois went and got a win. And then people kind of said, okay, wait a minute. One, maybe this Illinois team's legit. And two, for the 9th year in a row, maybe Nebraska isn't back or whatever you want to call it, right? And so, again, I'm not comparing Nebraska to Indiana, but I'm saying that it's a similar, as far as this matchup specifically, to where we're going. Should we get to Coach B?
Yep.
We're obviously a college football playoff team. A year ago, I really didn't know Siggs before him coming in the league. Obviously, had heard of him, his name, and really enjoyed the last year and a half with him in the coaches meetings. So we sat right by each other last year in L.A. spring meetings and had a chance to be around him. And this football team, offensively, defensively, and special teams, I think, are as well a coach as anybody will see.
All right, there's Coach B talking a little bit about Indiana. We're going to take a break here in a second. Courtney, any final notes that you had from B or Lonnie or Aaron Henry at the press conferences yesterday?
No, I just think you've hit the nail on the head. Everyone in this building has been very not this building, their building, Smith Center, has been very complimentary of this Indiana program, what they've done. As you just heard, Brett Bielema has really enjoyed getting to know Kurt Signetti.
All right. Tristan and I will be in Bloomington this weekend. We're going to take a quick break here, then we'll come back and talk about a little bit more coverage and then wrap up the show. Some quick notes for you. Illinois volleyball had a good weekend in Normal, correct? Was it 3-0 weekend for the Illini?
I don't think it was a 3-0 weekend, but they did get a 3-0 win over ISU.
Okay, and that was Sunday, so went out on a high note.
Yep. And then they're back here for 2 this weekend.
I think you have an Illinois volleyball team that's going to play in a lot of competitive matches. I don't think this is a knock. I don't think they're good enough to roll over a ton of Big Ten teams and win in 3 sets, 25-10, 25-14, 25-18. But I think they're also not going to get smoked by many teams. If any, I always think Nebraska is the one that you feel is just a really tough matchup. But this is the only team that took a set from Louisville at Louisville, and Louisville's number 3 in the country. So I think they're going to play in a lot of 4 or 5 set matches this year, and it'll be a matter of if they can pull those out. But you're seeing some promise from a young team.
And getting back here to Huff this weekend, I think will be really, really
that
good
will be nice for sure. Nice for us as well.
Yes.
Illinois soccer
Still dominating.
still hasn't lost.
They have a tie.
They have a tie. They do not have a loss. And
Best
that's
start in
best start in program history. Katie Holteen. We got a story on that on our website. Izzy Lee, the goalkeeper, has been simply unbelievable. Cool story. And of course, Izzy stayed through a coaching change, which is kind of rare in this age of college athletics. So she grew up an Illinois fan. Both of her parents went to school here, and it was kind of cool talking to Izzy. Not to get on a tangent here, but she said she's like, we just trusted Josh Whitman, because I asked, I was like, there's a limbo period there where you're like, we don't have a coach right now.
We're
training.
Trust Josh Whitman.
Yes, and she's just like, we just trusted Josh Whitman. We were like, Josh Whitman knows what he's doing. He's going to get us a great coach. It's like you see that connection a lot from players to coaches, and you certainly obviously see a connection from coaches to AD. But I don't know how often you have players that are loyal to a university because of the AD. Sometimes they may not even know the AD, right? And so I did ask if she got to have a say in the hiring. She said she let Josh handle it. She didn't say, hey, we got to hire Katie Holteen. But if she did, that apparently would have been a great call, because they're looking really good early. Quick break here, talk high school football, and then send us off. All right, welcome back. Spotlight game of the week this week is St. Joseph Ogden and Unity. Should be a really good game. I don't think SJO has lost yet. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Unity just lost this past week to Bloomington Central Catholic. Close game that went down to the wire. So I think that's going to be a good football game. Both proud programs, like winning programs with high expectations. So that's one that usually is fun every year, and it's fun that it's our spotlight game this year.
And it's fun in every sport.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime these
Yeah,
two
you're right.
meet,
You're right.
it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting, and both fan bases are going to be
I was
there.
actually there when they played volleyball against each other just a couple weeks ago, and
See,
it was
exactly.
or no, I was there last year when they played volleyball against each other, but it was a great atmosphere.
So not a
and,
couple weeks ago.
No, that would have been Muhammad SJO was the game I was at. That was a good atmosphere too.
And what's interesting is this matchup last year. SJO won the regular season meeting, and then SJO was, I believe, undefeated, like top seed, higher seeded team in the playoffs, and then Unity got to host and beat them in the postseason.
Yeah.
So both teams, a lot of talent coming back, and just a fun matchup with experienced groups and just good football programs that they're taught to play the game the right way.
In case you missed it, we covered 19 high school football games last week. We had highlights from 19 games. Go to our website, Friday Football Fever. You can watch the full thing there. We'll try to get out to as many as we can once again this week before Tristan and I hit the road for Bloomington on Saturday. All right, hey, thanks for watching, listening, tuning in however you did. We will see you back here again next week with Courtney Lane Brewer and Tristan Thomas. I'm Glenn Kinley. See you next time.